Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
Well, hello there, Chief Meteorologist Matt Lobhon here as we're looking at a chance for some storms as we go into this afternoon, perhaps even one or two that are stronger thunderstorms today. Not a high level of confidence on exactly how that's going to end up going, but again, there's a potential there, and that's something that we are tracking. And so wanted to just kind of give a midday update related to that, since we do have at least a limited chance for some severe weather today. Always kind of a scenario where we try to kind of give you a midday update as far as that is concerned. I'm going to go ahead and mute my phone just so I don't get all those off-hour alerts, but appreciate you guys for watching us, supporting us. We'll give folks a couple moments here to get online so we can kind of have this discussion. Pod Talk just looks kind of murky. We, of course, had the dense fog earlier today. This murkiness is a sign of moisture out there at this instant, coming in 66 degrees for that current temperature at this instant, and dew point is coming in around 63. You know, the overall amount of moisture somewhat limited as far as severe weather is concerned today, but certainly one of those factors that we are watching pretty closely here. I'm going to check out a couple other sky cams and wait again for a couple folks to come online with us on Facebook, Twitter, all the places, YouTube, that we do our streaming here, just to kind of give a few more folks a chance to get on there. But you can see some of the rainfall in Amory. Again, there are some showers out there at this time that we are tracking, and we'll look more at that here in just a minute. So as I kind of bring this back over, wanted to showcase the reason we're kind of doing this. We do have a limited level 1 out of 5 severe weather risk. It does include most of northeast Mississippi, really eastern Mississippi, stretching down to Hattiesburg and back toward Jackson. So we kind of guess the eastern 2/3 of most of the state under this level 1 out of 5 risk. And that means it's not impossible to get a few reports of severe weather today, but in general, we expect most storms probably should remain a little bit below those levels. If you know some folks, you're watching us on the social medias, you might go ahead and share this for them as well. Let me put just a little push out there for a second. Watching. As I'm sending something back and forth in the chat there. Appreciate Stuart for, of course, first comment on that at this point. So let's talk about this. There is a limited tornado risk to go along with this. You'll notice that's the exact same graphic basically for severe risk and tornado risk. It's not something I'm impressed with. We'll look at projections here in a moment, kind of talking about that. Eventually here we'll bring in Gabe and we'll have a little discussion with him as well, as he's still preparing for the day. The wind threat, similar locations there, and that again, I think the tornado threat expanded just a little bit on this with the midday update there. Hail, not the high likelihood, but again, I wouldn't be shocked to have a couple reports. But when we start talking about large hail, that's always a consideration there. But again, that limited risk for tornadoes, obviously one of the things that we're watching. Mississippi Live Weather Radar, all the rainfall we have out there at this point here, non-severe by a long shot. And going to give you kind of a 6-hour loop on this here to show some of the showers. Again, we did have some rumbles out there in different locations, thankfully, from yesterday, kind of seeing some of these showers at this time, kind of spreading through the area. Hi, Jamie, over there in Solent as well. Looks like we do have a few more folks kind of online with us. So let's kind of start walking through this. I talked about that limited tornado risk. That's obviously one of the things that we're monitoring related to this. And it comes back again to the measure of moisture out there that we're dealing with. And just a reminder again, we're looking at the hail on this. There's no hail threat on this. I appreciate the good folks at True Shield Roofing for helping us here with this hail analysis tool that's kind of new to us here at Mississippi Live Weather that we didn't necessarily have in the past. As we kind of look at the overall severe threats, everything just kind of coming in the green at this instant, thankfully. Okay, so let's kind of talk timing here and a few other things related to this. So first off, talking again about that day planner, or that hour-by-hour forecast here as far as that is concerned. As you can see, the rain coverage, we're dealing with that the next couple hours, maybe a few rumbles. If we were to see something a little stronger, it's probably going to come in a little later on as we head into this afternoon and evening, more the time frame that we're looking at related to that there. So keeping that in mind on our day planner. I'm going to bring it back to our analysis mode for a moment. A couple ways, again, in which we will show this. I'm going to actually bring it over here. We're going to look at those dew points, measure moisture based on the same scale as the temperature. And this is where we have seen, obviously, a pretty decent increase over the last 24 hours with estimations close to 70 on that dew point out there in the Delta. I'm going to verify that here in a second. We're going to go down to Rolling Fork. I want to see what that's coming in for that dew point, see if that matches what our graphic is showing up with there. Rolling Fork, yep, dew point is 70 right now. So there is this moisture kind of creeping up in the Delta. That will be one of those factors that tries to kind of funnel in the potential for slightly more active weather this afternoon. One of the ways, again, when we go and we look at this graphic, and I'm going to go back and forth on a couple of things. We're just kind of, cycling through and the understanding this. We show the severe risk area. One of the things to mention with this, it says level 1 on there. It comes from the Storm Prediction Center, Norman, Oklahoma. We have a discussion that we look at on that they put out, kind of an arm of the government there, NOAA, National Weather Service, technically NOAA, all part of this. It's one of their main forecast centers. They put out a discussion multiple times a day. The most recent one coming out about 10:30. Let's talk about this for a second. So in our area, looking at Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky, storms do remain still possible today and tonight across the region with a strengthening, basically, wind field as the system kind of kicks through the area. Possibility that, again, we could have tonight in particular to the north of us, but for us later this evening, a chance for some sustained thunderstorms and a possibility maybe a few of those could be strong to severe. They don't have a high level of confidence with this, but certainly it's, if you do get one of these in the right spot with those winds kind of strengthening, maybe you do get a little bit of rotation out of some of these. That's where I'd say limited chance for tornadoes coming in. Well, it looks like Boonville Middle School 7th grade watching. Hi, y'all there. Appreciate that. Duke, the weather dog, coming in here because whenever we're live, he wants to come in as well. You want to say hi? Put you up hot tall for a second. Yeah, you're going to walk away next time. Say hi, Duke. Hi. Anyway, don't trip me this time. I have tends to be right here off camera where you can't see him, and I end up tripping over top of him from time to time. So the same reason we see what you're looking at there is the same locations where we have that combination of the warmer air coming northward. We'll plot that on here. You can see Monroe, Louisiana, Alexandria, back to the south, some upper 70s there versus lower 60s that we do have closer to overhead. Let me pan this graphic just a little bit to kind of show that. So I'll try to not stand in the way of that. But when we look at the measure of moisture for some of those same locations, it shows up much more pronounced with this, what we call moisture tongue, this area of moisture working its way northward. And so there could potentially be, as this kind of works its way in the northeast Mississippi, a beneficial part, just maybe the right spot there, we do see some interaction and we get that potential to try to produce a brief spin-up tornado. I think that's really kind of pushing it, looking at latest model data, but not an impossibility here. So let's kind of walk through why we're saying that. I'm going to bring up something. I'm going to Cape. Try to bring the right graphic in here. Let's see. This is probably a good one. Let's plop this in. It kind of shows that fuel. You can see that fuel as it stands here at about 1 p.m. today. So let's go ahead and advance this to show you, and actually I'll slide it slightly farther out so you can kind of see where that fuel is and slide it over a little more. So that kind of working northward, and you see how it's really struggling to progress all the way into northeast Mississippi. But there's just this zone where maybe there's just enough at just the right time tonight. So we're not extreme on the fuel. This is a limiting factor on these thunderstorms, but we do kind of get things positioned where it's more likely later on this evening and tonight. And I do want to double check here on this, on their discussion. Yeah, I mean, they're talking, it's, again, we're on the northern extent on how that works there, where, again, maybe it's not impossible. So that's why, again, it's a level 1 risk where maybe only a few reports of severe weather versus a more significant risk. You'll note as we go later on into night, that threat gradually shifts a little bit out of here. So let's look at kind of the regular version here of our Futurecast for a moment as we populate that in and kind of go on the wider shot on that. So give me a moment here to, talk about wider. Sometimes that graphic tries to do that. So I'm just going to reload the whole thing. That's why I should need to be patient, right? Oh, now come on. Don't be silly. I think I should be able to bring it back in. This one will be locked in close, right? Yep. And now this one will as well. Now I just have to be patient. 1001, 2, 3. There we are. That's better. And let's pull off main panel. There. So now you can see everything. Okay. So first thing to take away again, between now and around 3 o'clock, the likelihood is some of those isolated showers we have out there thin out somewhat more. But you do see here on Futurecast, again, some of those spotty showers and thunderstorms, just looking at kind of the latest data of our Futurecast, which at this time is kind of the 15Z. That's the late morning kind of update on that there. I say that. It looks like my max reflectivity is not wanting to populate, so let's force it to do something else. Latest. You want to play that game? Okay, well, let's see if I can just force it to go regular max reflectivity and see if that behaves better. There we go. Why is that not? Interesting. Okay, so we're going to force it back a run on this. Give me a moment. We're going to have to go back to 12Z, unfortunately. That's fine. You'll get the same idea on this. There we go. Okay, so those initial showers we have out there now, I think pretty well depicted on this, still showing some of those down south as of 3:30. This particular projection, again, this goes back to this morning. We're going to have to find, I think, the low-res version to probably show this a little more. It doesn't have much development up here until later on tonight, 9, 10, 11 o'clock. And then in that period, it's possible when I start looking at this, you know, that you do have a few of these storms that do try to show some signs of rotation with them, right? So unfortunately, that's what we might potentially get, you know, a brief storm that rotates. And unfortunately on that projection, showing that mainly in the overnight hours. Okay, let's go ahead and let's make this look gross and pull up the kind of gross version of what we sometimes show. So I want weather.cod. I'm kind of irritated that unfortunately it didn't make that look very pretty on those latest runs. Okay, we're going to have to zoom that in. Give me just a moment here. Let's just drag that on over here. Okay, there we go. So this is the 17Z. So this is, you know, the absolute latest. So I'm going to have to check why, for whatever reason, those weren't coming in. But you'll notice it does not have a ton of activity between now and, say, 6 p.m. It kind of waits. 2Z would be 8 p.m., 9, 10, 11 o'clock tonight before a few of those thunderstorms develop. Now, first thing I would immediately say, let me put this in play. I wonder if I can make it play slowly. Are we just going to play fast? Feature settings. I don't think there's a way to make that play slowly. So let's zoom it in, knowing the fact that it's not going to play very quickly, unfortunately. Hold on a second. Gabe, go ahead and try getting all the way back home before you do this, just so that we can make sure we get that all the way charged up, if that's all right, unless you're not heading home. What do you think? Is that all right? Hold on, I'll pop. Gabe's kind of with me, but I don't think I have a double box that has both of us on there, so I'd have to shoot back and forth. So, I mean, are you heading home before you come into work? No, I can't
Outside
hear you. I heard you for a second.
Is it up?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I was going to give you guys a shot that has a little bit more to see. My house just has trees around it, so I wasn't going to get as good of a shot of the sky. So that's why I was going to go live here real quick. But if I need to get all the way back to the house, I can too.
Okay. Okay. Well, here, let me. And it occurs to me that I hope they don't get double audio on this because I don't have an IFB here at home. Hadn't thought about that, but hopefully that's not the case. Yeah, go ahead and give them a shot real quick. Outside, and then while you're doing that, I'm going to finish kind of getting this lower res stuff all set up so we can talk more about that. So I'm going to send it over to you for a second.
Hold up, give me a second. I got to get it on the tripod here real quick. Give me like 1 minute.
Don't worry about the tripod. Just walk outside with it. Take a step outside the car with it.
Okay. Well, give me a second to open the door. All right, so we are currently in the Baldwin/Guntown area, and as you can see, cloudy skies all across North Mississippi. And so this isn't exactly the prime severe weather setup that we're dealing with in North Mississippi. Level 1 risk is in place for today, primarily for tonight, as Matt was mentioning a moment ago. But Matt, I do want to say, I'm in a sweatshirt right now. So it shows you that the atmosphere is not exactly hot. It's not exactly energetic. And so we do need those dew points to climb just a bit, but along with that, we need our temperatures to climb as well, because we're just not dealing with that unstable air. It feels pretty cool out here. Wind's still coming out of the south, so that's exactly where it needs to come from to replenish a little bit of that moisture. But, I mean, it doesn't feel like a severe weather day. And those showers that worked through earlier today did help to kind of stabilize that atmosphere, so we're also dealing with that. But afternoon heating still in its prime, and we'll be allowed to replenish that as we get into that afternoon time frame. So the potential, it's still there, but as of right now, it doesn't really feel like a severe weather day, and let's hope that continues to remain the case. But this is a look outside. You can really see a lot of that cloud cover still covered with a blanket of stratus clouds there in the sky. Again, not exactly what the atmosphere wants if it's going to produce severe weather, but we're happy with it here in North Mississippi because it does mean that our severe weather potential is very low. Not saying it's an impossibility, but it's very low as of right now, and we'll definitely need a shift as we get further into that afternoon time frame. But Matt, things are looking as good as they can be right now, but I know that we're kind of in that calm before the storm in a literal sense, and I know you're tracking that in more detail there at the Room to Room Weather Center, so I'll send it back to you to kind of walk through that in a little bit more detail. But yeah, as for now, live in Northern Lee County, meteorologist Gabe Maynard, Mississippi Live Weather.
Okay, Gabe, keep. I just want to kind of look. Those clouds look pretty flat behind you. I mean that it's not a lot of vertical development, but I will bring in on when you were probably driving a minute ago. Dew points Yazoo City are at 70, and there's a big difference between that and obviously what we have this far north here. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to see something, but there's clearly a pretty substantial difference there, right?
There's something that needs to change if we're going to get severe weather to happen, and that's a good thing. But I do want to say I looked at dew points whenever I was in Boonville up in Prentiss County earlier today, and they were around the low to mid 60s. That's enough to sustain storms, but to build them, that's the golden question. And I don't think that this is exactly the environment that needs to be in place for those storms to build. I think this is more of a sustainable atmosphere that the storms could be able to continue to live off of, but not exactly strengthen off of. And that is the hope as we get into this evening. But those showers that worked through earlier today, I mean, really stabilize the atmosphere. They worked through Tupelo this morning, or Tupelo, Northern Lee County, where I'm at right now. But they're working through the Golden Triangle region as we get into this afternoon. So hopefully that acts as a limiting factor for this evening as well. Level 1 threat is more of a precautionary threat to let folks know storms are possible. And if the ingredients pair up in the right way.
And let's bounce back and forth a little more on this. Let's talk through this for a second, because here's what I want to show you for a moment. So here is dew points as projected by by the latest run of HRRR there. One thing I want to point out, just kind of looking at this, is that this moisture tongue here, Yazoo City should be right about there, and this shows that should be somewhere maybe upper 60s. When I look at the rolling fork camera, and we looked at this a minute ago, so let me kind of pop that up here just a second. And I'm going to have to, hold on, give me a moment to kind of get back out of all this so I can show that off here. You look at dew points. Dew points are probably a little bit low versus the reality of the situation. So this is the reality, and this is, what we're showing up with on the models there. I think dew points could be just a smidgen low. What we're 65 on the projection, where it should be 17Z would be actually 11 a.m. So let me change this here. Let's go forward another hour. Because again, you can see instantly, see how that goes from this, where I want to watch right there, okay? See how it shows, mid 60s, and it goes back the latest hour there, bam, and it shows it a lot drier. That tells me that the model's trying to equalize what its warm start is and what reality is. And so I think dew points are running a little bit higher than what the model is seeing there. That's what I'm kind of looking at there. So current conditions showing higher than the model, and even a little bit there. I think that's part of the reason why they are thinking potentially what they're thinking on this. I'm going to bring you back in, Gabe. So that's one thing, I would agree that I would say the farther north it becomes difficult, but if moisture is being underdone on the models, that does increase the likelihood just a little bit. Would you agree?
I would agree. And I will say, looking at models at the 12Z run, it wasn't overly impressive. It's going to be some redevelopment that happens later on this evening. But I want to say the energy on the model comparison, a couple weeks back, whenever we had, it might have been a week ago actually, when there was those severe storms working through Tennessee, and we said here in North Mississippi, there wasn't exactly enough energy to keep those storms going, and that's exactly what happened. Now, granted, models have their good days and their bad days, but it's a similar amount of energy to that day. And that's where it gives me a little bit of a hesitation whenever I want to say, is severe weather possible, especially on a day where it's gloomy across the area, doesn't exactly feel like we have the moisture ready enough for severe weather to happen. I don't know. I have my doubts with this setup. I know that Rolling Fork, if I was there, I'd be probably saying a different story. So down south, I would say definitely more of a primed environment. But now rainfall working its way south might work to stabilize it as well. I mean, I'm curious your thoughts on that, because rainfall, whenever it happens before that main setup, it's a limiting factor, and it's something that we almost want to keep that severe weather potential to a minimum.
Well, okay, now we'll bring you back in here for a second. I'll let you see kind of radar while we're looking at this as well, sort of clear this off. I don't show a lot of rainfall back in that part of the state at this instant. I'll check the Jackson radar site there. But, if we're looking at the area here where DGX, where we're looking at some of that moisture to return, I'm just playing devil's advocate here for a moment. You had some earlier, but we're also kind of getting this gap where we're now starting to get perhaps a little bit more working northward. I want to check the visible satellite on this for a moment. Let's see if either are visibles. Give me a second here.
Well, and while you're pulling that up, I do want to say the time of day that we're in, it's about noon 30 right now. So 2, 3, 4 o'clock have not happened, so that daytime heating has not reached its maximum potential. And so if this were to clear up a little bit more with the moisture that we do have that's already happened, it could work as also a maximizer out there towards the west to build off of that daytime heating of the day with the moisture we do have to create more of a primed atmosphere than what we're expecting right now.
Yeah, well, and I would say this, the thing here, and I'll pop this up so you can see this here, Gabe. Looking at visible satellite, it wouldn't be shocking that if I went out to Winona's probably still in the cloud cover by just a little bit. If we check some of those cameras, it's not impossible on some of these North Mississippi Storm Chaser cameras. We see a little bit of sunshine there. I'm interested to see the Pontotoc. Yep, there we go. Well, that's Greenwood. And then Winona here. Well, we're pointed up a little too high. Let me give me a moment while I try to adjust that camera down. That's going to take my thing here a second so I can get logged into that. WIN. And pan that down just a little bit. Yeah, okay. So, even without panning it down, looks like I have a little bit of delay on that one, so that's going to move the camera all over the place. But you can still see little bits of blue kind of showing up on that camera as well. Let's check out Pontotoc here for a moment. And Pontotoc, at least the direction we're looking, that's not particularly, but this camera has been running a little slow. So let's give this a moment to make sure it's really potted in here, PONT, with the very latest on this. And I'll check the direction this is looking. This is looking kind of a northwesterly direction. I'll see if I can make this look more southwesterly. It does, as we look kind of southerly there, it does kind of lighten up a bit more. So again, I do think we're going to see some breaks in this. That will get the temperatures kind of heating up a little bit more over the next couple of hours here. So that's I don't want to, again, we're not playing this up, but I don't want to also play this down either. I think a level 1 risk is accurate, and I do think that potentially some stronger thunderstorms could be possible with this, Gabe. So, yeah, I do need to probably go forward and show rotation tracks and everything. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, the positioning of that level 1 threat with the moisture tongue building along the Mississippi River, that's not in that severe weather threat. Do you think that they should have pushed it a little bit more west?
Not necessarily, because I think, again, we find ourselves in that sweet spot between stronger shear aloft up north and more instability south, and you have to have both. And so, if you're more likely to get that favorable overlap, that's, I think, part of the reason why we're sort of in the center of this limited risk area today, is because, let me go back to the risk area. I think you have that potential to be in that favorable overlap zone, right? Between stronger winds north, and the more instability south. So if it's going to pull off something, I think it's possible. Again, I don't think it's high likelihood, but I would definitely say it's not impossible that we're seeing that kind of on this here.
I agree. And I agree that, breaks in the clouds definitely do need to happen. Still the potential for that this afternoon here in Lee and Prentiss County. So that's really what we're watching here over the next few hours is, can that sun break through? Can it destabilize our atmosphere once again? And, how is that going to measure up to our severe weather potential going forward?
And I think what we're looking at as far as instability, because again, and unfortunately, Lynx is not bringing in anything but the most recent one, the 15Z HER in there at this point, which is kind of irritating. But one thing that it does do, kind of looking at there, is I don't see a whole lot of rotation tracks on this. Give me a moment. I'm pop myself full, but I am going to bring your audio up kind of in the background here. And so one thing that was kind of consistent last night that's been sort of consistent today is we look at the storm rotation. Number one, there's not much out there on that, right? But you do get a time period late this evening where we have a few of these thunderstorms. What we're looking at here is what we call ISO lines, maybe. And so they kind of show and highlight the most intense parts of these thunderstorms. We would typically, if we were looking at a significant severe weather event, be looking for these stripes of red behind it. And I'm gonna work really hard to see if we can show you one on there this evening, because there's just right there how it shows that maybe there was just that one. See that how underwhelming that is there. That's an example of the rotation tracks. So it's again, this goes in. We'll lob this into the not impossible category, but I think also I would keep it in the not likely category as far as that's concerned. That's strange things happen. We'll see, but that's rather underwhelming. Agree?
It's non-zero in full force, that non-zero tornado threat.
But the interesting thing, I think one of the interesting things is the timing again. Timing is late this evening to overnight, right? Mm-hmm. So that time of day doesn't exactly... Go ahead.
I was going to say it's going to be that redevelopment that, again, like this morning's storm or showers and a couple of storms, not exactly the main event, but it was, just a little bit of prefrontal action. That main batch is going to be along with that cold front, which of course is going to make things feel better this weekend, but that's really the big driver and the big lifting mechanism with this forecast. And so once that fully gets here, that's what's going to initiate a lot of these storms. And if there is enough energy that builds through this afternoon, then we could look at that line kind of set up. But yeah, we were talking about helicity tracks or those lines that
anything else, right? Like we're talking about something probably developing elsewhere and maintaining in here. Do we have maintenance cape, yes, right, as opposed to developmental cape fuel?
Yes.
So okay. One thing, I don't know if you can see this real quick. One thing that I find interesting, and I'll take your opinion on this, and it is if you watch closely here, you can see how this is kind of lifting with the drier air back in. I'm assuming what that is trying to claim is that these showers we have out there now continue to kind of mix down the moisture somewhat. I think that might be a little overdone on where it's showing it there. Thoughts?
I'm trying to look at it behind the scenes. So working your way forward with the time frame. So it's carrying it south with that.
So hold on. So let me. I'm going to make it play. We're going to zoom in. So give me a moment while
I see what you're talking about.
Let's see if I can. It's not going to let me move over there, but you can kind of see it. So yeah, it's right there. It's kind of that expansion. See how it kind of like that dry. It's kind of like initially there. Whoa, we really dry things out. Part of that is if I think if we see some sunshine, maybe mixing down the dew point a little bit, but it also just doesn't really progress up much of this little moisture tongue there in the delta. So, I mean, I think it is a stretch to talk if we were to say tornadoes. I don't think that's the case. But I think tornado, not impossible if just this little bit of moisture. It's just, I don't think it's quite there. Agree?
I have seen crazier things happen. One of the setups that really come to mind was one out in northeast Alabama that was on a day that we weren't expecting severe weather. But all the ingredients happened at the right moment, and it was a very brief tornado touchdown. And that's what we're watching
And
today.
it was also
If those
like June or
ingredients
July, if memory serves.
Yeah, it was also when you don't expect, like, it was a day that, it was just a rainy day, and everything just matched up in one spot in northeast Alabama, and it's like, oh, tornado warning. And so that's where, we're not saying, oh, we're going to be like, oh, tornado warning. Like, of course, we're going to be watching this behind the scenes, and if stuff starts to get more favorable, but that does have to happen over time, and we'll see that as we head into this evening. But it will take all of those ingredients lining up at the perfect moment, at the perfect location, for a brief, emphasis on brief, tornado touchdown, if it were to happen.
Hey, there we go. Looks like we might finally have 16Z in here on our model run. Let's double check that. Yeah, 16Z. So good. Looks like that one loaded in all the way. So let's go ahead and show that here for a moment. So it does do a good job, I'd say, showing most of those showers out there east. And then it tries to develop these. You can see development time. Let's move this to where you can actually see it, and I'm not completely in front of it. Has development or initiation time, again, out here in the Delta where they should have more fuel for Cleveland, Clarksdale, Helena, out toward Hernando. Has a few of those more, that 6:30, 7, 8, 9 o'clock time period this evening, and then tries to maintain those moving eastward. But what I don't see on there is, and I'm going to double check to make sure, 1 hour updraft helicity. Yep. I mean, I don't see a single helicity track at all on there. Do you?
Which has been consistent with models. There hasn't really been high-end helicity tracks. And you said it earlier, how you're kind of trying to nail down one of the tracks. It would just happen to be cracked up in the background. It's like, if we're looking this nitpicky at like a slight difference in color, and that shows you this isn't exactly a primed environment for severe weather to happen. Again, it's going to be a limited threat with not a ton of reports, but you could get that one storm that just stays on the stronger side.
Yep, absolutely. I agree to that. Okay, again, timing here, primarily going to be late this evening to arguably overnight. Hence the reason we always talk about kind of weather call in this situation, is just to make sure that, if something does happen, you and your family are safe. You get those phone call alerts for tornadoes, confirmed tornadoes, get a second phone call alert there. So certainly watching that potential, calls for severe weather, major flooding, tropical warnings, all that kind of stuff. Again, want to make sure that, the tropical warnings, that's text messages, but calls for major flooding, and obviously the damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes. And hopefully none of those things out there tonight, but a few strong wind gusts, certainly a possibility. I want to thank our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, here for joining us this morning. I know that he is kind of getting ready. We're all getting ready for the opportunity to go out and cover some of these games this evening for, in particular, obviously, our Mississippi Live Game of the Week. So, Gabe, I appreciate you for kind of hopping on here. I'll let you kind of get everything in place. We'll make sure that hotspot is good and charged. And I will see you at 5 o'clock.
We'll say an extra prayer, because I don't want to deal with the rain as we're shooting highlights this evening. I don't think anyone in North Mississippi does, because that timing, Oxford has a game at home, Tupelo has a game at home. Both those games could potentially be impacted if these storms were to speed up even ever so slightly. So thinking about them, saying our prayers for them as well, that we can stay dry across North Mississippi for playoff action.
Absolutely. That's what we're definitely doing. Appreciate it, Gabe. Be safe. We'll talk to you just a little bit here. Let's bring it back here full for a minute. Let's kind of give you the final overview as we wrap things up here. Again, on the wider shot, this is our severe weather risk for this Friday. It does include really the eastern half of the state of Mississippi here. What we're watching in the Room to Room Weather Center is a non-zero possibility to maybe see a storm show some rotation. It's the exact same locations, severe weather risk and tornado risk. That's where our more significant chance is today. And again, when we look at the damaging winds, similar locations involved in there as well. So maybe a rogue wind gust, maybe a brief spin up. But when you again look here, this always comes back to the number of reports. We expect to have a very limited number of reports, and the ultimate limited number is 0. And that's our hope. That is the way this ends up playing out. And certainly a pretty decent chance that is the case. So keep our fingers crossed, and definitely hoping so. So I'm gonna double check our chat over here for the side, and some folks there mentioning the sun's starting to come out. That's definitely the case. Retha mentioning that she does have weather call. That's a good thing as well. Our next broadcast is going to be coming up, live broadcast at 5 p.m. Of course, we are going to be in West Point for that game between West Point and Pontotoc. Big playoff matchup there for our Mississippi Live Game of the Week presented by Casey Lott and Langston and Lott. We'll be there 5 and 6, 10 o'clock. And listen, we will be doing extra coverage as necessary if for whatever reason we have something significant, maybe something that tries to produce a tornado. We'll be here. We'll do those push alerts. We'll be on Facebook and, of course, in the app. Easiest way to find us is in that app. Can't emphasize that clearly enough, because that is really the way in which probably the easiest way we can kind of keep you ahead of anything there is in the app. As we clear that away and give it just a moment here, I'll go ahead and show you how to find that app there. You can download it for iOS and Android devices. These QR codes, if you're one of those folks watching us on Facebook, there is a good chat. You can ask questions on there, but the easiest way is probably using, why did that decide to pull up? Put it right back there. Using that app for iOS and Android. We do obviously also stream live at msliveweather.com. So I'll double check all of your questions over here, raining on and off through the day. James Bishop right on there. Appreciate y'all. Gatlinburg, Amory, appreciate Linda there, Angela, Mary, all the folks there around the region, Boonville, that are watching us, Tupelo as well, on this Friday. It'll be mild, and hopefully these games will be in pretty good shape this evening. I think most probably will time out well for that. I would say that it's probable at some point, at least some folks are going to run into, especially in the Delta, some lightning delays there related to some of these games. North Half next week. I know everyone looking ahead to that. Of course, we do have some previews, our Will Kohlmeyer, on our Facebook page of some of the big matchups from tonight, select matchups across the region. Okay, we will see you coming up at tonight. I guess our next broadcast is going to be tonight at 5 o'clock. We hope to see you then. And thank you all so much for supporting us here on MS Live Weather. I'm going to see if I can get everything on here ready to go. Begin selected item. We'll see you at 5.
This roof's getting installed with our premium roofing system. Backed by our 50-year warranty. And there's a 0% financing, no payment for 6 months options that this customer utilized. If you're looking for a new roof and you need an affordable option, call Absolute Restoration.